The following is a Hennessy Hendo production. It includes excerpts and material from my vast collection of books and general knowledge. Please share the videos, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
The United States has a long history of involvement in the destabilization and overthrow of foreign governments, employing both overt military interventions and covert operations. While exact numbers are difficult to ascertain due to the clandestine nature of many operations, various studies and historical analyses provide estimates of U.S. interventions aimed at regime change. Estimates of U.S. involvement in foreign regime changes. Cold War era, 1947 to 1989. A study by political scientist Lindsay A. O'Rourke identified 72 instances where the U.S. attempted to change other nations' governments during the Cold War, including 66 covert and 6 overt operations. Post-Cold War period, 1990 to 2023. The frequency of U.S. military interventions increased significantly after the Cold War, with data indicating nearly 400 military interventions between 1776 and 2023, half of which occurred since 1950, and over 25% in the post-Cold War period. Notable examples of U.S. involvement in regime change. 1. Iran, 1953. The U.S. overthrow of the Iranian government in 1953, often referred to as Operation Ajax, is one of the most significant examples of American intervention in the Middle East. It led to long-term consequences for U.S.-Iran relations and set a precedent for covert operations during the Cold War. 2. Guatemala, 1954. The U.S. overthrow of the Guatemalan government in 1954, often referred to as Operation PBS Success, is a key example of Cold War-era intervention. This operation led to the ousting of Guatemala's democratically elected president, Jacobo Arbenz, and set the stage for decades of political instability and violence in the country. 3. Chile, 1973. The US-backed overthrow of Chile's government in 1973 is one of the most significant Cold War-era interventions. This operation culminated in the ousting of democratically elected President Salvador Allende and the installation of General Augusto Pinochet's military dictatorship. It had profound implications for Chile, Latin America, and US foreign policy. 4. Iraq, 2003. The US-led overthrow of Iraq's government in 2003 marked a significant and controversial chapter in modern Middle Eastern history. The invasion of Iraq, aimed at removing Saddam Hussein from power, had profound and lasting consequences for Iraq, the region, and global geopolitics. While the United States did not directly assist Saddam in gaining power, it had geopolitical interests in the region that indirectly shaped the environment in which Saddam operated. The CIA supported the 1963 coup that temporarily brought the Ba'ath Party to power. Saddam's role in this coup was relatively minor, but it was an early moment when the Ba'ath Party gained prominence. 5. Libya, 2011. The US intervention in Libya in 2011 is a key example of military action with far-reaching consequences. It was part of an international effort to oust Muammar Gaddafi, Libya's longtime ruler, during the Arab Spring uprisings. While the intervention initially aimed to protect civilians, it culminated in Gaddafi's overthrow and led to ongoing instability and conflict in Libya. Regional focus. Latin America. The US has a history of interventions in Latin America, often supporting coups to replace certain leaders with certain different regimes, especially during the Cold War. Brazil, 1964. The US supported a military coup that overthrew democratically elected President João Goulart, whom Washington viewed as a leftist and potential ally of communism. The US provided financial and logistical support to coup leaders and later backed Brazil's military dictatorship. A military government ruled Brazil for over 2 decades, 1964 to 1985, with widespread political repression and human rights abuses. Argentina, 1970s, 1980. During Argentina's Dirty War, 1976 to 1983, the US, under Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, supported the military junta that targeted leftist dissidents and opposition. The junta was part of Operation Condor, a US-backed campaign of coordinated repression across South America. Tens of thousands of people were disappeared or killed during the junta's rule. The US faced criticism for its complicity in the atrocities. Bolivia, 1960s, 1970s, 2019, 1960s, 1970s. The CIA was involved in supporting Bolivian military leaders to suppress communist influences. The US assisted in the capture and execution of Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara in 1967. 2019. The US was accused of supporting the ousting of President Evo Morales, Bolivia's first indigenous leader, after disputed election results and widespread protests. Bolivia has experienced cycles of instability, with Morales alleging foreign interference in his removal from office. Venezuela, 2000s present. The US has consistently opposed the socialist governments of Hugo Chavez and his successor, Nicolás Maduro. Allegations of US-backed attempts to overthrow Chavez in a 2002 coup and ongoing economic sanctions have aimed to weaken the Maduro regime. Venezuela remains mired in political and economic crises, with the US supporting opposition leader Juan Guaidó as interim president in 2019, though this has not resulted in regime change. Colombia, 20th century present. The US has been deeply involved in Colombia, primarily through funding and support for counterinsurgency campaigns against leftist guerrillas like the FARC, Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Under Plan Colombia, the US provided billions of dollars in military aid to combat drug trafficking and insurgencies. While some progress was made in weakening guerrilla groups, the war on drugs has been criticized for human rights violations and exacerbating violence in rural areas. Ecuador, 1960s, 1970s. The CIA was involved in covert operations to influence Ecuadorian politics, targeting leaders such as President José María Velasco Ibarra. US concerns revolved around maintaining access to resources and countering communist influences. Political instability plagued Ecuador during this period, with frequent changes in leadership. Peru, 1990s. The US supported President Alberto Fujimori in his authoritarian measures against leftist insurgent groups like the Shining Path and MRTA. Fujimori's government received US military and financial aid despite its involvement in corruption and human rights abuses. While insurgencies were largely defeated, Fujimori's legacy remains controversial due to human rights violations. Paraguay, 1954 to 1989. The US supported Alfredo Stroessner, a dictator who ruled Paraguay for 35 years. His regime was part of Operation Condor and suppressed dissent with US backing. Stroessner's rule was marked by political repression and human rights abuses, leaving a legacy of corruption and inequality. Uruguay, 1970s. During the dictatorship that ruled Uruguay as part of Operation Condor, the US provided intelligence and training to security forces combating leftist groups. Political repression during this period led to widespread human rights violations. Challenges in quantifying interventions. Covert operations. Many US interventions were clandestine, making it difficult to compile a comprehensive list. Interpretation. The term destabilization encompasses a range of actions, from direct military involvement to economic sanctions and political interference. Conclusion. While precise numbers are elusive, Historical records indicate that the US has been involved in numerous efforts to destabilize or change foreign governments, particularly during the Cold War. These actions have had lasting impacts on the affected nations and continue to influence global perceptions of US foreign policy. Thank you for watching. Please share the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Check out other series including 10-minute synopses or complete audiobooks on Hennessy Hendo on YouTube. Improve your vocabulary. Be more fun at parties. Increase your knowledge. Become a literary master like Hendo.